What's up, guys? I'm doing a sermon today. I'm running a little bit behind. I'm getting all my verses kind of set up on here so I can screencast them to the TV. Let's see. Who's trying to join?
Can you hear me? What's going on, guys? To everyone who's just now joining, I'm running a little bit behind. I'm just getting my verses in order here, and I'll be preaching pretty soon. Uh, can you hear me on there? There's a lot more people on here than I thought there would be. All right. So, anyway, I'm just getting my verses ready, guys. It'll be a little bit longer before I actually start.
He said, but once you get it fixed, it's worth it. Because your mobility and everything, you're gonna have full mobility, you're gonna be able to do things that you haven't been able to do. So, and it's worth it because, I've noticed now that, you can feel the difference. It's still sore and all that, but I can feel the difference from when, because it was bone on bone, every time I get out and walk on it, you could just hear it. It was like, so it's a lot better.
And mine's more stable. That other one you just threw out from under me.
Yeah.
And this one don't. I mean, I can do whatever. You should have seen me trying to crawl out of the river on the rocks the other day. So I got my skin on my knee. I had to use it to get out of the river. I had no choice. And that's the first time I've been on it, like on my knees. But
Oh, I can't get on my knees yet. I can't get down. Like to get underneath the sink or something. Used to, I could just sit down on the floor and do what I wanted. Well, not right now.
I can get down there easy enough. Getting up is the hard part. But I can get down there.
I think I'll be able to once it's all the way healed, but
Yeah.
it's still in the healing process.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're only 4 weeks out.
You left the door open. Jennifer had loaded all of them. Oh, sorry, love. All of the dogs to the town, so bring them. This is Dayton's. There.
There, move. There, no. Come on. No.
I don't know. No, I was holding on to this deal. I didn't see all that. I backed up.
Alright. We're ready. She got up in the bed with me last night and slept all night.
She's so sad now. You can see
Yeah.
that.
You need a bed companion.
Pretty much.
You you look
She
at
did
her
really
eyes,
good, though.
you can see the sadness in her eyes. So she's been not treated very nicely. She looks pretty well, pretty big, so I don't know. They only carry, they only carry 58 days. You hear me? I said, I was telling Jamie, they only carry 58 days, and he don't know how much she's been pregnant.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to figure out. I felt the baby's moved last night.
Huh? She's pregnant.
Oh, okay.
Trying to figure out about how far along she is, because they only carry 58 days before they give birth.
All right, y'all. We ready to start?
Yeah.
Is everybody in here?
Okay. Welcome, everyone, and everyone on TikTok Live. Glad y'all are joining us. So, I didn't have as much time to really rehearse and memorize this as much as I would like to. So I will be working off my notes quite a bit. Have all the verses except for the last 2 or 3 passages on the screen. So that you can see pretty easy. But today's message is something that has been on my mind a lot lately, which is spiritual warfare and the things that we're told we're going to see in the end times, the last days before the rapture. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I have quite a bit of scripture I want to get into with you guys that I think will help you kind of see what's going on in the world in a new light. And it's everything that Jesus told us was going to happen. So, there are a couple of verses I'd like to open with. And the first is, as you see on the screen, Matthew 6:33, which tells us, "Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness." And the second is Luke 17:28 through 29. Likewise also, put that on the screen for y'all. Likewise also, as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat and they drank. They bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. Verse 29. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. So the reason I'm doing spiritual warfare and end times together is because they go hand in hand. You see, our world has been so gradually and subtly conditioned away from the Bible and away from God. So let me explain on that a little bit. Nowadays we have abortion running rampant, and I'll talk more about that later. But that didn't just happen. This has been a movement spanning centuries. Right? Look back at the 1800s, right? In the 1800s, women didn't have the right to vote. They should have, but they didn't. They protested and they fought hard and gained the right to do so. Now this is good, right? But that's where it more or less begins. Later it was the right to join the military, then the combat MOSs with the military, and then we come to the 70s. All right? All of the best lies in existence have a little bit of truth in them. A good representation of this is rat poison. 1% of rat poison is poison. The other 99% is good food. That's all it takes to corrupt something. So where you see it began good, it transitioned into what we're going to talk about now. So in the 70s, this little thing called feminism begins to catch on. And women don't want to be tied to raising children anymore. They want to do what the men do, and they want to go out into the workforce. Now on the surface, this seems fair and reasonable. But as I said, this is spiritual warfare, and Satan is very good at what he does. You see, by having the women leave the house in droves, this is the beginning of destroying the entire household dynamic. So you think about it. With women in the house being the one to raise their children, they always had parental guidance to teach them, to have a relationship with them. They saw how marriage was supposed to work. They saw the husband as the head of the household who went out and provided for the family, and the wife as the one who tended the household and took care of the children and her husband. And when they were grown, this is what they had in their minds when they left. This is what they carried into adulthood, was how the family was supposed to work. Morals. Now who's raising the children?
The government.
Hang on. It's not the dad because he's out working. And he already was. But now it's not the mom either because she's out working. I mean, you look at pretty much any family these days, and they really can't make it off of a single income anymore. The woman has to work. And so both parents, they get a few hours a day, if even that, to spend time with their children. So all in all, these parents get 2 to 3 hours a day, and that's their time frame to mold their children. The rest of the time is at school. School is funded and ran by the government, which as we know is ran by corrupt politicians who can no longer figure out what gender is. They have no idea what the difference between a man and a woman is anymore, and these are the people who are raising their children. The Bible tells us it's supposed to be, in Ephesians 5:25, husbands, love your wives even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. Continue on there. That he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. In Ephesians 5:29, for no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourisheth it and cherisheth it, even as the Lord the church. Now, we know that Jesus is God manifest in the flesh, and we, the church, are multiple times referred to as the bride of Christ. In Matthew chapter 6, just before my opening verses, Jesus tells us that the Father feeds the fowls of the air and the flowers of the field, even though they neither sow nor reap. He tells us that we are worth much more than they, and that if we seek him first, he will provide. And so you have the family dynamic right there. We, the church, as the bride of Christ, who are to seek and submit to him. Christ as the bridegroom who provides in God the Father. The entire premise has been lost all over the world. So let's talk about marriage for a minute. Consider why God told us that sex is to be strictly between one husband and one man.
Like woman.
You, husband and husband, brother.
Did I say woman?
Yeah.
My bad.
You
All right,
said
one
that.
husband, one wife.
You said one husband, one man.
My bad, my bad.
It's okay.
Husband and wife. All right. So, let's look at a single man for a moment. All right, single man's life is pretty easy, and I can speak on this from experience. When a man is single and he's out of his house, or his parents' household, all he's got to do is get up, go to work, he can eat what he wants, he can go where he wants, he can do what he wants, and come home and just relax. He doesn't have to worry about angering someone at home or dealing with anyone's emotions but his own, and he doesn't have to worry about providing for anyone else. So what was the incentive to get married? Sex was a part of it, companionship. But now, women these days just give it up. So if he doesn't have to commit to get it, why would he? When he's feeling lonely, he can go out and hit the bar up or, wherever he likes to go. He can get his taste, and then he can go home and go back to what he was doing. It's super simple. Now let's look at the woman. She has to work now, and so she becomes self-sufficient. And then it comes to that verse in the Bible that says, wives, submit to your husbands. Well, for a strong, independent woman, that comes across as, well, if I stay single, I don't have to submit to anyone, and I can live my life the way I want. And so when she wants companionship, she does the same thing as the man. So now both parties are giving it up willingly with no strings attached. Not even allowing for the family to be produced, distancing us even further from what Christ intended. And I'm a perfect example of this. Before I got married, I was never in my Bible. I always had one, and I always believed in God. But as far as I was concerned, I'm saved, that's good enough. I never read it. I never opened it of my own volition. Well, once I got married, and I had to step up, and I had to step into a new role, well, then I did get in the Bible. And that's true of a lot of different people. When a man is forced to step into the role of husband, it's then necessary to have a good, strong, Christ-based marriage for him to be in his Bible. Now, if he's not married, there's no need. Or at least that he doesn't think there is. So. And this is why I talk about spiritual warfare, because it's rarely taken seriously, and oftentimes it's justified away. We read in the Bible about demon possession in the 4 Gospels. Jesus gave us the ability to cast out demons to Jesus gave the ability to cast out demons to his apostles. Did he do this just to make the reading more interesting? Or is it because it actually happens and he was equipping us to deal with the problem? We see it all the time, but dismiss it and say, well, that person's just crazy. And I don't know why they're so angry all the time. And so hateful. It's because Satan has done a marvelous job of convincing us that it's supposed to look like the exorcism of Emily Rose or The Conjuring. When a lot of times it's a spiritual battle inside the mind. You never fully understand what's going on in someone else's mind, what they're dealing with. You know, you've heard it said, they're fighting their own demons. And we take that figuratively. But in some cases, that's actually quite literal. So we can't physically see the spiritual world. And for a lot of people, especially in this day and age, seeing is believing for them. And sometimes not even then. So we hear, oh, well, they're fighting their own demons, just think they're having a hard time in life. No, some of those people actually have demons attached to them. They're not as, contorted as they once were. They've gotten smarter. They fight differently. They know that if we can't see them, it's a lot easier to convince us it's not them. They've taken a step back, and all they have to do is whisper, and humanity will do the rest for them. So, in Matthew, sorry, I missed something there. And for the Christians, on their part, we've predominantly gotten out of our Bibles. We don't know how to help them anymore. So if they can't help themselves and we don't know how to help them, Satan and his helpers have free reign to do whatever they want. Our power comes from Christ. And if we step away from him, our power is gone and we are free-range chickens. So what do? Well, Matthew 11:28 gives us the answer. It says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Jesus is very plainly telling us that if we come to him, he will give us rest. He will deal with the supernatural, and through him and him alone, we have authority over demons. I believe God intended for his word to be taken literal, not allegorical or metaphorical or hypothetical, but literal. He says he made the heavens and the earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh, and I believe he did exactly that. 7 literal days. He says he flooded the entire earth and saved 2 of every kind plus 8 people. I believe that's exactly what happened. He says he parted the Red Sea so that his people could cross, and that he led them with a cloud during the day and a pillar of fire during the night. And again, I believe that is exactly literal. That these Hebrews, during the day, they were being led by a cloud that God put there and guided so that they could follow it to get where they needed to go. And at night, it was a pillar of fire. Every night. That's why he tells us in Mark chapter 13 to watch for his return. I believe he intended for us to watch and discern the signs so that we may know when it's getting close. Mark 13:28. "Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When her branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is near." Now, I don't have 29 on there, so I'll just have to read it for you. "So ye in like manner, when ye shall see these things come to pass, know that it is not even at the doors." Right there, even at the doors. Verse 30. "Verily I say unto you that this generation shall not pass till all these things be done." Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels which are in heaven, neither the Son, but the Father. Now again, this is why I say we take it literal. Now I don't believe we can narrow the rapture down to a day. But he tells us to look for the signs. So we know we can determine a general time frame. And he gave us the span of that to look for, which was the generation. So let's continue. Verse 33. Take ye heed, watch. Watch and pray, for ye know not when the time is. So, as I said, God gave us the span of time that we should be looking for, which is a generation. So what is a generation according to the Bible? Well, God answers that question too. Psalms 90, verse 10. The days of our years are 80 years and 10, and if by reason of strength they be 80 years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away. Now what is 80? That's 20. Or a score is 20. So 80 is 60, and 10, that's 70. So a generation is 70 to 80 years. So we know the time span. Now the question becomes then, when did this generation begin? Well, I and many other theologians agree. Well, I'm not a theologian, but I believe, as many theologians do, that it began May 14, 1948. It was the end of the Second World War, and the land of Israel was given back to the Jews. Never before in history has there been a nation that was destroyed and its people scattered come back. Not once. Canaanites, no. Hittites, no. No nation that was ever destroyed has ever resurfaced with its people and reclaimed their land. It was given back to them after World War II. And for nearly 2,000 years, these Jews held on to their customs, their traditions. Some of them held on to their lineage. So after slaughter in almost 2 millennia, they've still kept all this. No other nation in the world has done that. Not one, but the Jews have. Why? Because they had a promise from God Himself to cling to. And they did exactly that. So where was this promise? That is Ezekiel 37. Therefore prophesy and say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, O my people, I will open your graves and cause you to come up out of your graves and bring you into the land of Israel. And ye shall know that I, out of your graves, and bring you into the land of Israel. And ye shall know that I am the Lord, when I have opened your graves, O my people, and brought you up out of your graves, and shall put my... President Trump did something that no other president has ever done, but they've been promising to do for more than 50 years. It's actually a prophecy from Revelation that took place in all of our lifetimes. Well, maybe not his. But the rest of us took place in all of our lifetimes. But before I get to that, I want to take y'all to Genesis 1:14. Genesis 1:14 says, And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, for seasons, for days and years. So right here, chapter 1 of the Bible, God tells us that He plans to use stars for signs. Since the invention of astrology and reading your future from the zodiac signs, a lot of people believe looking at the stars for answers is wrong or evil. But God told us in the very beginning He planned to use them in this way. Now let's take a look at Luke 21, verses 25 through 27. Oh, actually.
I was just now getting to Luke 14, brother.
Well, that's why I have it on the TV booth. Okay, so we're getting to the verses I don't have slides for. So, nope, I apologize. I'm going to get my Bible. 1 second. Ill prepared. Bad preacher.
breaks everything down in English where you can understand.
Okay, Luke 21.
These out and others.
Verses 25 through 27. So, and there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are said, comes from Revelation chapter 12, verse 1. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with illustration here. With the constellation Virgo, Leo is a constellation of 9 stars, plus these 3 planets, the sunlight making her gown, and the moon at her feet. That is exactly, word for word, what Revelation 12:1 says.
Jupiter in the womb for 9 months.
Right, yeah. And verse 2 actually talks about her travailing in pain to give birth, and Jupiter spent 9 months rolling around in her belly before it came out right between her legs. So earlier I said we need to be taking the Bible quite literal, and this is a perfect example of what I mean. This wasn't some metaphorical thing God was speaking about. It actually happened. Another prophecy is given to us in the 4 Gospels, and I think it's one that seems to get overlooked or treated as less of a prophecy and looked at as more of, it's just kind of how things are. But no, Jesus was very specific about how it will be, and the fact that this is treated this way is exactly what he had said would happen. Oh, hey, I did have those. Okay, well, that's all of them. So, Matthew 24, verses 37 through 51. Let's read that one. Okay, Matthew 24, 37 through 51. But as of the days of Noah, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So right here, he's giving us a clue as to what we should look for. If you study the story of Noah, one of the things that should jump out at you is angels were breeding with women. Another way to say this is that our DNA was being tampered with. Well, due to modern science, we know that our DNA quite literally spells out God's name. YHWH is repeated in our DNA strands. It's separated by proteins and acids. And if you line that up with the Hebrew alphabet, it spells exactly that. YHWH. Yad-Hev Vav-Hev, or Yahweh. Repeatedly, all through our DNA strands. It's like God signing his name on his artwork. So, now, as I said, this is repeated. Once again, people are tampering with DNA to modify it, or more accurately, they're trying to erase God's name. They took it out of schools, the pledge. Why not take it out of our DNA? So let's continue this. 24, verse 38. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking and marrying and given in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark. So the next verse, everyone acted like everything was normal until it wasn't. You see, Noah didn't shut the door himself. The Bible tells us in Genesis 7:16 that God shut the door. In other words, God got his chosen people to save them before the end. So, verse 39. And knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Verse 40. Then shall 2 be in the field. The one shall be taken and the other left. 41. 2 women shall be grinding at the mill. The one shall be taken and the other left. 42. Watch therefore. That is again. He's telling us to watch. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. So, alright. So that's it for that passage. Okay, so there's 2 more things I'd like to show y'all, and then I will wrap this up. The next passage is in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. This know also. So 2 Timothy 3:2. For men shall be lovers of their own selves. I don't really need to explain that one. Covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, and unholy. Okay. Little Nas, we've seen him all over. Dressed up like Satan and twerked on a man's lap that was dressed up pretending to be God. I don't know if any of y'all seen that one. But yeah, that was on national television. In this, following this massive float that just looked like this giant demon, behind them was some guy dressed up with horns and a pitchfork, the stereotypical nonsensical Satan, chasing a man who had a crown of thorns on and a loincloth, depicting Jesus. Now obviously this was meant to mock him, because he was spending the whole parade running away from this depiction of Satan. Now he'd come up and prod him, and he'd fall over, and he'd get up and laugh, and then he'd keep running. All over the world we have this kind of blasphemy. Never in human history has God been mocked to this degree. And the Bible tells us that he won't allow it. At least not for long. It says God will not be mocked. Next day after that parade, the whole place got flooded. And not just a little bit, but that whole area had mudslides, houses falling. God says he won't be mocked, and they did exactly that, and they paid the price. Again, we need to take the Bible literal. So, well, I know we all know about this one because there's an entire month dedicated to it. Gay Pride. California has a parade to celebrate homosexuals, transsexuals, basically anything that isn't straight. Now, if that's your choice, fine. You have that right. God gave you the free will to choose that. But stop trying to cram it down our throats, and stop trying to preach that it's better than being straight, because it is wrong. And there's another one. I remember seeing a video of this guy dressed up like a woman. Very obviously a man. And he was doing an interview on some news thing, CNN or something, I don't remember. But they asked him what he thought about Jesus. And he said, "Oh, I love Jesus. I love any man who can get nailed for 3 days and come back for more." This is what's going on in the world. This is what Jesus said was going to happen. It happens all around us on national television. Children see this. So, let's continue this passage. 2 Timothy 3, verse 3. Without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good. Despisers of those that are good. Without natural affection. We see females these days, and I refuse to use the term woman because it does not apply, but female does. We see females these days marching down the streets for the right to murder their own unborn children. I'd say that's a pretty good depiction of without natural affection. So, verse 4. Traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. I don't really think I need to go into that one too much. 1 Timothy 6:10 tells us that the love of money is the root of all evil. Everyone, Christians included, always want more money. They want the nicer vehicle, the nicer house or apartment. They want to travel and pleasure themselves in perverse ways with whoever, or in some cases, whatever, they can. We are so enamored with pleasure, we have entire resorts and theme parks and adult-oriented places to go to together. 2 Timothy 3:5. This is going back to the passage I was reading from. Having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. Verse 6. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women, laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts. Verse 7. Ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of truth. Always learning, but never able to come to the truth. Where do we see that at? I would say that describes universities and colleges all over the world. We hear all the time now about children graduating high school as a Christian, some even wanting to be ministers or pastors. And by the time they finish their first year of college, they completely deny God and refer to Him as a fairy tale. I've even heard Him referred to as Sky Daddy a few times. These universities educate the truth right out of them. I spoke earlier about Satan being the one who raises most of our children these days. He carries it on right into adulthood. There's universities. In John 10:10, Jesus tells us that Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and he has done just that all over the globe. The last passage I want to take you through is in Mark 13. Mark 13, verse 7. And when ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, be not troubled, for such things must needs be. But the end shall not be yet. Verse 8. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be earthquakes in diverse places, and there shall be famines and troubles. These are the beginning of sorrows. Jesus tells us how the earth itself is going to react in the last days. He's telling us how the countries are going to act, the people's going to react, the earth itself is going to react to this event. And we see that. We see it every day. Throughout all of the Old Testament, there are prophecies given, many of which dealt with the coming of Christ. The Pharisees and other religious leaders of the day knew He was coming. They knew. They didn't know exactly when. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? All they knew is that He was coming. And they knew the signs to look for. Once again, that sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? We now face the same situation. We know that Christ is returning. We know the signs. Let's make sure we aren't dismissing them like they did. They were told exactly, as we are now, what to look for. Virgin birth, signs, miracles, wonders. They've seen it all and denied it. Preaching this message today is simple. Jesus is returning, and He is coming sooner than most people think. The signs are everywhere, exactly the way Jesus said they would be. And He is all but screaming at the top of His lungs to share the gospel. That is the whole point I wanted to make with this message, is share the gospel. If you have anyone in your lives that you've been putting off sharing the gospel with because you thought you had time, now is the time. If you have an opportunity, make one. Go up and ask them, hey, can I share the gospel? None of us, no Christian or anyone who calls themselves Christian should be tell us those who deny me before their friends, I will deny the former father. Embarrassment be danged. I'm not perfect. Who cares? Wouldn't you rather go to heaven knowing that you at least tried? Because it's not their life you're saving. It is their entire eternity. And if you call yourself their friend, then it is your responsibility and your duty to share the gospel with them. Because if you get up there and they're not there, because you had so many opportunities over the years to share it with them, and you didn't do it, you cannot honestly call yourself their friend. I didn't have this verse in here, but I'm going to add it in anyway. That's my personal favorite verse. And it's Isaiah 41:10. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Yea, I will uphold ye, and strengthen you with my right hand of my righteousness. So if God is with us, and He's telling us not to be afraid, then why should we ever be embarrassed to share His word? God tells us not to be afraid. And I'm sure we've all heard this before, but I would much rather stand with God and be against the world than stand with the world and be against God. I do have one more verse to add in. I meant to add it in the beginning of this, but I believe it's Romans 8:28. But it says, all things work together for good for those who love Christ. And I wanted to add that in because if there's anybody still in there, I started late. I was getting kind of anxious in was anyone on there who was meant to see this message. And I believe God is more powerful than Satan, and I believe He brought them to here to hear it. And I think we can all carry that into our lives. So that's all I got. I would like to close with a word of prayer. So, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for letting us all be gathered here today, and I pray that this message was only of you and nothing from me. If it came from me, it's bad and it's wrong, but if it came from you, it is good. So I thank you for your written word. I thank you for all the blessings that you give every one of us each and every day. We thank you for sending your Son to pay for our sins, because no one in the entire world is capable of upholding your law and maintaining a perfect life so that we could enter into heaven. So thank you for sending your Son, Jesus. In your mighty and holy name, Jesus Christ, we pray. Thank you and amen.
What are you gonna do?
Bella,
Thank you. Okay, what's your question?
Like, I'm thinking, there was the thing, and, like, the Jews are God's people, right? But I thought the Jews didn't believe in Jesus.
They don't. Jesus is God manifest in the flesh, but they always worshiped God.
and they'll have a chance at last. They'll be the last people that have a chance.
So, after the tribulation, during the tribulation period, God goes back to dealing specifically with the Jews. So right now, God's focus is on the church. That's us, right? The Gentiles. But during the tribulation period, which takes place right after the rapture, then God goes to begin dealing with the Jews once again, to give them another chance to come back. Huh? They do, but in the old way, the Old Testament. So they're still,
Covenant.
yeah, which was the law. So all those laws in there that say, commit this sin, you got to do this sacrifice, they still believe that. When Jesus came, died, rose again, he put a stop to all that. He was the sacrifice for everyone. All you have to do is accept it. He paid the price, essentially. So if you think of heaven like a movie theater, and me and you were going, and I offer to pay for your ticket, and I have it right here, you can either accept the ticket, accept Jesus, or you can reject the ticket, in which case you have to pay for your own way. You have no money. Does that make sense? You can't pay your own way to heaven. The only way it is to accept Jesus. He paid the price for you. And I forget the verse, but there's actually a verse in there that says, if you were the only one, Jesus Christ would die for you alone to wipe your sins. That is how much he loves us. Does that answer your question? More or less, sort of, kind of. Huh?
Thank you for that answer.
You're welcome. I did my best.
Papa, your spring chicken quit groaning like this.
What?
Your spring chicken quit groaning like
Thanks, Joanne. Well, I'm here for a few more minutes if anybody has any questions. Let me scroll back through these real quick. Oh, thank you for the roses. If you're still here. I don't think it will save. I'll have to look before I jump off here, but I don't think that lives save.
I don't remember if they do or not.
What's that, Dad?
Me, barely. What you gotta do to your fence?
Replace it so the dog can't climb it. Alright, well, I think that's going to be it for the day. I'm going to see if I can save the video. Nope. That's it. So, thank everyone for being here. God bless you all. I love you in the Lord.